I got Asheebo Rojas with the Chatham News and Record and Coach John Berry. We're back with the Chatham NC Sports Roundup. Apologize for not being here yesterday. It's all my fault. I had scheduling conflicts, but here's the agenda as to what we're going to talk about. Again, we'll start off with Asheebo talking about what he's got out in the newspaper this week. We're going to talk about also, I don't know if any of you heard about the situation with the JM head football coach. Spring sports has kicked off this week, so we'll have some info on that. And, of course, the big news is we've got the state high school basketball playoffs. We went in with 8 Chatham County teams. We've got 6 playing on Friday. So let's get ready and let's get this kicked off. And we will start off with Mr. Asheebo. So Coach Berry and I are going to zone out for a little bit.
Yeah, just starting with what I got coming out in the paper today and this week. So, of course, big thing, like Gene said, spring sports starting this week, and the big 2 sports we got is baseball and softball. So I got some previews, reached out to some coaches to get an idea of where their teams are heading into the season. And after about a few of our teams have already started playing this week. So to take a look at that, just to see what Chatham County is expecting from his baseball and softball teams as we head into a new season. And then also we got, of course, the roundup, talking about all the scores and kind of what happened in some of the big games. And Mid-Carolina won a 2A conference tournament, and Central Tar Heel won a tournament for basketball last week. And then also we got some coaching changes and coach introductions. We got William Urena is coming in to step in as the Jordan Matthews girls soccer head coach, coming up from the boys JV program and some of his work in Solid City FC. And they've started their season, got his first win earlier in this week. So congrats to Coach Urena and the Jordan Matthews girls soccer team. And then also we got Coach Brett Walden, head coach of the Chatham Central baseball team. He stepped down as the Chatham Central volleyball head coach after 6 seasons, 71 wins, multiple playoff appearances, and multiple all conference selections. So congrats on the great 6 years from Coach Walden. And then also, like we'll talk about later on, we have a short story on Coach Johnson being let go by Jordan Matthews as head football coach later last week on Thursday. So, and also Athlete of the Week is also out there, and we'll talk about our Athlete of the Week as we talk about basketball from last week.
Let's see. What are we going to kick into next? All right. So we talked about, you touched on last week's sports and results. Do you want to go into Athlete of the Week, or do you want to hold off on that till we get into the basketball portion of it?
We can hold off on that until we get to basketball.
All right. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on at Jordan Matthews with the head football coach Johnson, and then we'll kick into the spring sports, which kicked off this week.
Yeah. So Jordan Matthews announced that they've let go Coach Ryan Johnson on Thursday. And then, Coach Johnson inherited a program that went 3-28 during his they inherited a program that hadn't had a winning season since 2011. So Jordan Matthews has seen some struggles in the football program before he came in. And he was an alum in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, playing there, and came home after 17 seasons of coaching elsewhere across the state. But after three seasons, posted a 3-28 record during his tenure, and he won 2 of those games last fall. So, we're just starting to see some improvements with the football program. Not going to get into the details of what happened behind the scenes, but just some differences between him and administration that led to their parting ways. And reached out to Coach West, AD at Jordan Matthews. He said the search for a new coach is underway, so they're getting ready to find a new coach there before the offseason and spring football starts. So, and of course, Coach Johnson, he shared some great words about his alma mater, being able to come back home in Solid City and get the opportunity to coach here. And I know a lot of the community online, they were confused at why it happened, and reached out and shared some kind words to Coach Johnson. Like he said, his last words on his Facebook post when he announced it was, "Once a Jet, always a Jet." So he's always going to be thinking about the program as he looks for another opportunity.
Yeah, I know when you, I think it was the week before you started, they had the all Chatham County Schools football preview, and actually Coach Johnson headed that up over at JM, and he was just talking about the changes he's made. And yeah, I think he graduated from JM in 2000. So nice to see he still got good feelings with the school. He had a good experience while he was here at Jordan Matthews as a student. So sorry to see him go, but sometimes these kind of things happen. So. Coach Johnson, we wish you the best of luck in whatever you do, and I'm sure there's parents who appreciated how you handled and interacted with their kids. So coaches do a lot in these environments. I will also, before we move on, I'm going to just plug this picture right here. There is Coach Fred. He is one of the assistant coaches at Northwood, and he's also the Margaret Pollard girls basketball coach. And if you've ever seen him coach, he works up a literal sweat on his forehead. So I went ahead and we got him a sweat towel to use. So when he's out there, he's got two of them with Coach Fred sweat towels. So Coach, congratulations. They won the county middle school tournament on the girls side. Chatham Middle School won on the boys side. And that place was packed at Seaforth for those games. So thanks for all the folks who just watched middle school sports, middle school basketball. Actually, I think middle school volleyball is starting this week as well. Speaking of stuff starting this week, Asheebo, how about the spring sports? I think soccer, lacrosse, and what else is kicking off this week?
Yeah, so we saw softball and baseball getting started this week. If weather permits, it looks like weather is looking good right now. I'll be at Chatham Central tonight for their softball opener against East Chapel Hill. And I think Chatham Central baseball is also playing at Chatham Central tonight at 5 o'clock as well. Their season opener against Eastern Randolph last night. And also we got some stuff starting in, like you said, lacrosse, girls and boys lacrosse. Track and field at JM is a big season opening meet tonight with some Chatham County teams going out there. And then also we have men's tennis as well as men's golf. And then, of course, don't forget on March 5th, next Tuesday, we'll have Jordan Matthews' first ever boys volleyball game that they'll be hosting there. So it's going to be a really busy spring, a lot of different sports going on as they get started this week.
All right. And one of the other things, I don't have the picture now, but I'm going to have to put it up because one of the things that came up in last week's discussion was the fact that I saw Coach Berry up in the stands at Northwood kiboshing or talking with the Powells. And I got a picture of Asheebo with Drake's parents at the last basketball game. So I will post that for next week's Chatham County Roundup. The other thing I found, which I've posted on the Chatham Journal Facebook page, was it 2020? So that was 4 years ago. Drake's brother, Deuce, with 1.2 seconds left on the clock, took a three-point desperation shot from the corner that went in, and they went ahead and beat the team to advance. And there was a court storming by the kids. No one got hurt. But the funny thing is, if you watch that video, Coach Amy at that time was the AD with Coach Cameron at Northwood, and he's like a little girl just cheering along with everybody else. So congratulations to the Powells. Deuce, you were a great player at Northwood. Coach Berry, I know you dealt a lot with Deuce as well. And we will post that picture of Asheebo and the Powells because now he's in the same league as Coach Berry, where he's associating with the royalty of basketball here in Chatham County. All right, I've talked enough. Which time, folks? We've got 11, 14. Holy cow! We got 14 folks right now waiting to hear about you gentlemen talking about Chatham County basketball. So I'm going to drop out and let you go at it.
Yeah, Coach Bear, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the Mid Carolina 1A, 2A conference tournament and Central Tar Heel tournaments from last week. So let me just run through some of those scores and the results from there. Of course, C4 fell to Northwood for the first time this season. Northwood came out ready to play, led by senior Skylar Adams, who I can say now is our Chatham News and Record Athlete of the Week for this week, especially for her performance against C4 in this game. She had 22 points, hitting from from three, getting to the basket, leading her team to victory there. They came out to a 16-10 lead at the end of the first quarter, and then just kept their foot on the gas the whole game, disrupting Gabby White and the Seaford offense, and still getting 3-pointers from Aaliyah Roberts, Natalia Whitaker all game, and came out on top in that one, 55 to 44. Coach Barry, I want to talk to you about that game because that one you were on the sideline on the Seaford side, seeing it firsthand. What did you think about that game?
I thought Northwood did an exceptional job. The better team that night won the basketball game. It was well deserved. I made mention to Coach Snipes as well as her dad, as well as a lot of the players, because at the end of the day, we all one big happy family. To be honest with you, we separated by about 8 miles. And if the girls at Seaford don't win it, then the next team on the list for me would be Northwood. So if we were going to lose to anybody, listen, I'm not mad at all that it was Northwood. I'd much rather beat Northwood than, let's say, a Southeast Alamance or some other team, that's out of the county. Because at the end of the day, we all want our players and our coaches within the county to succeed. But the bottom line is Northwood played better. They deserved to win that particular game. And, hats off to them. And, and I told the coaches they should be proud of their girls.
Yeah. And then down in the Central Tar Heel 1A side, we had a shocker, Chatham Charter losing to Covert Garden School in that conference tournament final. And that was the night's first loss since losing to Albemarle on November 28th. So tough loss for Chatham Charter, who, we kind of all figured was going to take that conference championship with Covert Garden School. They were also a really good team in that conference. They came ready to play and beat a couple good teams to get there.
Well, one of the things that we talk about all the time, Asheebo, is this. During the regular season, when you beat a team 2 times and you have to play them for the third time, oftentimes that third game is very, very, very hard to win for a couple of reasons. Number one, the team that won, they feel like, we've been there, we've done that, we beat them already. What are you going to change? Yeah, there may have been 50 million things that you needed to correct and fix and tweak, but there's no urgency because you won the game. On the flip side, if you're the team, that's been the nail, that's lost both games, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're determined to turn it around. There's a certain level or certain amount of intensity that's probably going on in practice, and you keep tweaking and doing certain things. So you come out with energy and effort, and all of a sudden, if the other team doesn't match that, then you're in a little bit of a pickle, you're down, the other team is motivated, and ultimately they win that game. And I think that's probably what happened in that Chatham Charter game. I can tell you that in the case of that Seaforth Northwood game, we knew, and I was worried about this game from the beginning, that this is going to be a particular problem. But oftentimes, if you don't experience this, if you don't understand these dynamics because you just never went through it, you don't really understand it. But I understood it. And then when you factor in that Northwood was playing home for that third game, then everything was set up perfectly, for that to happen. And if you recall, going back to that first game that we played Northwood at Northwood, the game basically played out the same exact way. The only difference was in the second half, instead of Seaforth making a run, making some big shots, and making it into a ball game and taking a lead, those shots never occurred. Northwood continued what they did in the first half, and ultimately the game was played even in the second half. The game was lost in the first half when Northwood was up by 10, 11 points. The game ended with 10, 11 points. So we played them even in the second half, but the first half was where the game lost. And also, if you go back to Chatham Charter, I've always made the statement that I would like to see Chatham Charter, play another team, over, in the conference where Seaforth and Northwood was playing. And then that would give me a real good understanding of where they was at. And ultimately, they ended up losing to Clover Garden, which I'm not 100% sure that Clover Garden would have competed with Seaforth as well as Northwood. Even Southeast Alamance for that matter. And this would tell me a lot about, what's going on with Chatham Charter just by seeing them play one of those teams.
Yeah. Chatham Charter is definitely an interesting team because we saw them make the run last year to the state championship, and they bring in a good freshman hand ahead in there at point guard. So interesting to see how they fare out here in the first couple of rounds of the playoffs. And we'll talk about that later. But also, I want to get into the boys' side because we got another third time matchup of the season with Northwood and Chatham Central in the Mid Carolina boys championship. And in that one, I mean, I know we say it's like we just talked about. It's hard to beat the team 3 times, but Northwood, I mean, from the jump, they came out. They looked like they didn't want to mess around with Chatham Central in this one, knowing that, hey, Chatham Central was one team that gave them probably the most trouble in the conference with Reed Albright, Luke Gaines. Those guys can really move the ball around on offense, get some open shots. But this one, I mean, defense was just locked in, especially from Drake Powell. He did a great job of, blocking shots down in the perimeter. I mean, down in the interior, playing some great perimeter defense as well, following around Reed Albright a little bit. And that one, what did you see in that one, Coach Barry?
Well, this one is an interesting scenario because I thought that in the first game, Northwood essentially they played 3 times. The first game that Chatham Central played Northwood essentially wore them down. Chatham Central played real tough the first quarter, and then starting in the second quarter throughout, then Northwood started to impose their will, ultimately pulled away and won the game comfortably, 20-30 point lead. In the second game, Chatham Central came out with super motivated, super determined, and they played Northwood as tough as you can play them. It was a 10, 12-point game in the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken. They actually took it to a single digit, like a 9.8-point lead that Northwood had in that second game. So really, Chatham Central was super motivated to try to get that second game. What happened was when they did that in that second game, it worked Northwood up. So Northwood's like, okay, we got to play this team again. The last time we played them, they gave us a little bit of a scare. So now I believe when Northwood went to practice, they was like, man, we cannot play with Chatham Central. Listen, a few more shots here, a few more shots there, man, they may have beat us. So you know what? We have to take this team very, very seriously. And that's what they ended up doing in that third game when they played them in the conference tournament championship. They pretty much had their way. That being said, I think Northwood is starting to peak. I think in addition to Drake Powell, all of those other players, Fred Whitaker, Bo Harvey, Cam Fowler, Jake Clayton, Chad Graves, Ashton Elliott, Isaiah is Blair's another one. Another guy they got in the game is Hayes Burleson. These guys are playing really strong team ball. That's adding on to Drake Powell's greatness. And I think as long as they can play team basketball, listen to Coach Matt Brown, buy in, dive for loose balls, and play with the level of intensity and competency that they're playing with, I think the sky's the limit for Northwood. I'm super proud that they're in this county, super proud to follow, and I'm definitely super proud to commentate their games because I think that this team is destined to do something great.
Yeah, they're definitely playing really good basketball, like you said. Outside of Drake, and getting to see more contributions from Bo Harvey, guys like Jake Layton. Also, too, some of the guys are coming off the bench like Ashton Elliott. They got, I would say, about 7, 8, even 9 deep. That they can plug in and not really see much of a drop off there when they need fresh bodies out there on the court. And then also, I wanted to touch on Chatham Charter. They fell to Southern Wake Academy 71-43 in their conference tournament final in the Central Tar Heel 1A conference. Southern Wake Academy, looking at their schedule, they were another team that really dominated in that conference. Really good team down there in the 1A level, especially on the east side. We may get to see them run up against Chatham Central at some point if both teams make it. But Chatham Charter, like we said all year, it's not the same Chatham Charter teams we see in the past, but they still have some good pieces. But yeah, Southern Wake, just a really good team they ran into there in the tournament final.
Yeah, the way things work in high school basketballs is very, very cyclical. For 2 to 3 years, maybe 4, a team will have a big run. And then all of a sudden they'll start to lose some players and it just goes up and down. You have these ebbs and flows. And I think in the case of Chatham Charter, Coach Messier had a great run of great players for the last 3-4 years, winning games like there was no tomorrow, competed at a very high level to win the state championship. And this past year, he lost a lot of those players through various reasons. Some of the guys were seniors. Some of the guys had to go to different schools because of locale. There were some other issues going on. And ultimately, the cycle just caught up to them. But nevertheless, despite that, Coach Messier still kept to his script. Let me go ahead and run this super intense training camp during the summer. We're going to bring them in during school year. We hit the weights. We're going to do some skill work. And once the season starts, we're just going to start playing a lot of games. And we're going to teach these guys in practice, but we're going to get them out there on the court so they can learn OJT, on the job training, to try to get these guys ready, not just to maybe win the conference, but ultimately to try to do some damage in the state tournament. And that's what he did. Now, in the case of South Wake Academy, they've had some years where they've had some doozies. Those teams were not very talented at all. This year, the cycle is up for them. So now they have some really good players, and now they've been running through the conference regular season as well as the tournament. So now they have their shine, they have their flowers, and let's see what they're going to do. Only time will tell.
Yeah, and that leads us right into Tuesday's basketball matchups from first round of the playoffs, which everybody's been waiting for here in Chatham County. So I want to start with Chatham Central and Woods Charter. Woods Charter, congrats on making their first playoff appearance in school history. Talked to Coach McNair before the game, and they were really pumped up before the game. He's loud with his team. They were ready. They came in ready to play with a lot of energy, especially in that first quarter. They gave Chatham Central. I mean, they gave them a game in the first quarter. Eli Hunter DeMarco down there dominating offensive boards, getting putbacks. They were moving the ball on offense and moving really well on defense too. Chatham Central missed. Well, both teams combined missed their first 19 threes in the first half. Chatham Central missed 12 of them. So they really took away the 3-point game from Chatham Central and forced them to get to the basket. I think in the second quarter is really when Chatham Central got hold of the game there with Aiden Johnson getting some offensive boards, putting them back up. And then Luke Gaines, Reed, they figured out the game. Just drive to the basket and get fouled. So they got a lot of their points there at the free throw line. And then, of course, it opened up in the third quarter, second half, where those guys just pressing. Once Chatham Central got in the press, they turned the ball over, sped up the pace, and ran it up with some transition layups and also some more fouls there at the basket. So, but it was for the most part, it was a good showing for Woods Charter in that one. Even though they fell 87-36. Coach Barry, what do you think about the Wolves and kind of how this season went for them? A big turnaround from last year, winning 3 games, to this year winning double-digit games and making the playoffs.
First of all, I want to congratulate Coach Leonard McNair for the fantastic job that he's done with the Woods Charter Wolves. He's taken on a program that only won 2-3 games the prior 2-3 years. And for him in this short period of time to triple or quadruple the number of wins he had in the first year is absolutely amazing. And I'm especially proud of Coach Leonard McNair because he's actually one of my past players. I remember him going to Northwood and him transferring over to Woods specifically to play basketball with us and our system that we actually had there. So for Leonard McNair to do what he's doing right now, man, my heart melts, and I love that guy because I know he's great for those kids. I know he knows the game of basketball. He's always been a gym rat, and he's just an all-around great guy. That being said, I want to also shout out, like 4 specific players on that team. You've already mentioned Eli Hunter DeMarco. He's the work engine, the workhorse. Back when I used to coach Woods Charter, there was another kid named Jordan Poe, and with Jordan Poe, he had these back problems, and which really shortened his career. Well, guess what? Eli Hunter DeMarco had the same type situation, but he fought through it. He kept fighting, and ultimately he gave Coach McNair and the team everything he had and acted as that catalyst and a great example for the rest of the team. And by the way, Eli Hunter DeMarco, as well as Levi Haycock, was all conference recipients. So just want to make that point as well, because Levi is looking at Eli and like, okay, this is how you do it. So for the next 3 years, because Levi is only a freshman, for the next 3 years, you know what, Leonard, Coach McNair has that to look forward to. Levi also is another guy that kind of jumps out at me because, as you know, I run basketball camps, and one of the schools that we run them through is Woods, and oftentimes I'll see Levi coming into the school to get some shots, to get some work in. And a few times I was able to kind of work with him for like 10, 15 minutes, work on his shot, work with some dribbling, just work with some technical aspects of his games. And the one big thing that I was super impressed with Levi was he was a student. He listened, and he was actually trying to learn. And the last two captains that I want to bring up is Maxwell Carr as well as Noah Lepert. These guys, again, captains of the team, catalysts, super proud of the entire thing. But as far as the game with Chatham Central and Woods Charter, listen, Chatham Central has had big time experience playing like higher level schools, higher level competition. They're not going to flinch with anyone. And if you look at their basic approach to beating teams, even when they play Northwood, even when they play Cummins or Southeast Alamance, they never just blow you out in the first, let's say, quarter, the first 3 minutes, the first 4 minutes. What they do is they just constantly just play their game. They just grind you. You got Devontae Johnson, you got Reed Albright, you got Luke Gaines, you got all these guys. They'll just wear you down over the course of the game. And next thing you know, the game was a 5-point game at the end of the first quarter. End of the half, you're down by 12. By the end of the third quarter, you're down by 25. By the fourth quarter, you're like, man, this is a 35-point game. How did that happen? We were playing these guys so close, and it just sort of got out of hand. No, that's what they do. This is their blueprint. This is why this is a dangerous team, because they're used to playing in these tight games. They're not front runners. They can just grind you over the course of time to ultimately win the game. So listen, we all expected Chatham Central to win, and they did. But that doesn't take away all the great things that Woods Charter have done from the beginning of the year all the way to now. I expect Chatham Central to continue with this run, and ultimately when they play South West Academy, I think they're going to beat them as well if South West makes it that far.
Yeah, Chatham Central, one thing I know about them is they're really they're really good at coming up with different ways to beat you, right? Because they can beat you with the 3-point game, right? Moving the ball around the 3-point line, getting open looks there and knocking those down. They can also beat you with the one-on-one, just give Reed Albright, get out the way type of game. But then they also have the team aspect, right? We're going to press you. We're going to run. We got Devontae that can get out in transition. We got him. He can also drive and kick it out to Reed, who can also do the same thing for Luke. I mean, they're just a really versatile team that can beat you in a bunch of different ways. And then they also have Aiden down low that's bringing the energy with the rebound. So, like you said, really scary team down in the 1A level. And then they'll have North Edgecombe on Friday for their second round game at home. And then also, Coach Barry, I know you were at the Northwood game against Green Central for the boys' side. Tell us what happened in that game and what did you see from that?
Green Central came to play. They came to play. They had some athletes. They had one kid who matched up pretty well with Drake Powell, and somebody didn't give them the memo that Northwood is supposed to win, because they came in there and they competed and they kept the game within a 10, 15-point game for the most part for the entire game. And if it wasn't for Northwood playing the way that they play, team ball, other guys stepping in, being able to break the press, being able to get out in transition, being able to play really good defense, that game could have got real tricky. Because I promise you this, man, any team that Green Central played, they were going to be a problem. So, no, that was one of those kind of teams that you probably don't play till like the second, third round. And Northwood had them in the first round, and they took care of business. Super proud of that group. There was a lot of key contributors outside of the normal people like Isaiah Blair, Hayes Burleson, Ashton Elliott. Obviously, we know about Cam Fowler, but these guys, man, they are peaking at the right moment. They beat a very, very game determined team that's athletic, that can get out on the floor, can run, can break a press, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That team was ready to go. What kept them in the game was they had a couple of players who can just who can hoist up threes from like 2-3 feet beyond the 3-point line and hit them. That happened at least 4 or 5 times, which ultimately kept the game where it was. If those threes didn't go, Northwood would have had a 20, 30-point lead. But because of those three-point shots, it was a relatively closer game. So hats off to Northwood to beat a very, very determined team, and to move on to the second round of the state playoffs.
Hey, Coach Berry, before you go, Asheebo, I just want to ask, because you and I were both at that game. Number 2 was the one for Green Central that was their top shooter. 24 was their top defender, and as you said, they were shooting threes. Do you think the closest of this game, going back to that Chatham Central first game, do you think that's kind of set the mindset for Northwood that, hey, here's a team that we should have beat, that we did beat, but maybe we didn't beat them by as much as we could have? Is that going to set the tone for their next game, which is going to be up against North Johnson, number 13, at 7 p.m. on Friday? And then if they win this one, they're going to go up either against South Granville, which is number 5 seed, or Southeast Alamance, which is 21. So do you think this wasn't a pretty win, but do you think there's a lot that Coach Brown and the team can take away from this game?
No question about it. I think Coach Brown's going to have their attention. He's probably not going to be too happy with the fact that it was like a 10, 15-point victory instead of a 20, 30-point victory. He had to keep all his players in for the duration of the game. And like you said, Gene, the last time I saw something like this was that first game at Chatham Central. The very next game they played, Chatham Central, they kind of like ran away with it, blew them out. So I suspect in this game on Friday, unfortunately for, I believe it's North Johnson, the next team that they got to play, they probably going to have to pay the price because the last team made it so much interesting. So I expect Northwood to jump on this team early and often and get this game over with fairly quickly. That's my personal opinion, because I'm sure when Coach Brown gets them in practice, he's going to be talking about certain things. For instance, there were a couple of players, we just had problems, handling the ball. There was a lot of turnovers because we just didn't catch the ball. It was turnovers. We missed some layups. We missed a lot of threes that we normally would hit. The other team was getting some rebounds. Like there was this one big kid, I believe he was number 24. He was just bullying his way on the boards, getting like these second and third opportunities, getting fouled, getting putbacks. So now when Coach Brown looks at this film, when he goes to film study, say, look, fellas, this is what happened. We give way too many offensive boards. We bobbled the ball way too many times, gave up turnovers, and we missed some layups. If we remove these 3 things, then every time we play, we're going to give ourselves that more better of a chance of winning this game. So I suspect, as Gene said, in this next game, the next team is going to have to pay for those boo-boos that Northwood made in the first game by Northwood doing what they normally would do by just running teams out the gym. And that's sort of what I expect in this second round on Friday.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. All right, Asheebo, back to you.
Yeah, kind of similar thing you said, Coach Berry. I was just going to say, I think Northwood should expect everyone's best, in these playoffs, especially in these early rounds. Coming into Northwood, playing against Drake Powell, one of the best players in the state, was going to Carolina. I think everyone's going to come to play and try to give themselves a chance against Northwood. So, yeah, like you said, I think they're going to be much more ready for that type of play from their opponents here in the next couple of rounds. And then also our last boys game from Tuesday night was Southeast Halifax got Chatham Charter 72-56. So Chatham Charter got eliminated there in the first round. So yeah, that leaves our only 2 boys teams for next Friday. North Edgecombe at Chatham Central, and then North Johnston at Northwood. And then, I want to get to the girls' side of things. So I was at Chatham Central once again, right before the boys' game, and the girls had Southside, and that one coming from Coastal Carolina. So Chatham Central won that one 57-44. Southside, when looking at them in the warm-up, the layup lines, that was a big team as far as size. Tall, physical type of basketball type of team that they went up against. Chatham Central, they're a little undersized, but they're really tough down low with Carolee Dodson and Lauren Cavendish, and that was kind of really the story, right? I mean, Kara Lee really had to fight for her rebounds, fight for her points down low. And then what helped them, though, was really outside on the perimeter with Chloe Scott, Maddie Underwood, really making shots, getting big steals on defense when they ran the press, and just little things like that kept them in the lead and got them to win there against Southside. So Chatham Central, they're going to go on and play Beargrass Charter on Friday. They got to travel to that one because Beargrass is a higher seed. And then we also had Chatham Charter beating Pender 59-43 in the first round. And then on the two-way side, we had Seaforth beating Lewisburg 65-28, and North Farmville Central 62-22. So all of our girls teams in Chatham County did advance to the second round. Coach Barry, what do you think, specifically the teams you know more about, right? Seaforth and Northwood, they're getting their big 2 wins in the first round. What are you seeing from them, and how far do you think, especially Northwood, can they go here in the 2A East bracket?
Well, I'm happy for all of the the lady teams here in Chatham County. Northwood home state playoff victory. It was expected. Now they go out to I believe East Carteret, which is about 3.5 hours away. It's a game where East Carteret has a really good record, but I think matchup-wise, I think Northwood should come out with the victory. What worries me about that game with Northwood, and this is something I hope the coaches listen to, we have to go 3.5 hours drive. And to go 3.5 hours on a school bus, get off the bus, probably going to have to eat or get ourselves together, get some shots up. They have to play a team that's been sitting there waiting for us, going through their normal progressions. That part of the puzzle, becomes a little bit tricky. So if it was up to me, man, I would almost want to leave the night before, stay in a hotel, get some shots up before school starts, so you're still legal, and just let these girls relax so that they can be ready to play at night. And if you can't do that, then I would want to leave somewhere around 11 or 12 noon, really, really early, so that we can get there, have 2-3 hours of this fluff time where we can go through and have the pregame meals, maybe get access to a gym, get some shots up to kind of get those girls' minds ready. Outside of the travel, I don't think Northwood should have a problem in beating East Carteret. I know they have a good record, but I looked at a little bit of film on them, and I think with what Northwood has to offer with the Glover sisters, you have Natalia Whitaker, you have Skylar Adams, you have Nia Henry, you have all these components. I think this is a very tough, gritty group, and they're going to be a tough out for anybody as long as the circumstances are neutral. So hopefully Northwood girls can get there early to eliminate the issue of the travel. That's how you eliminate that, so that you can have those girls in the best mindset to succeed. Last thing I'll say about this is this. It's real interesting that the powers to be put Northwood and Seaforth on a collision course, which basically means if both teams reaches the third round, guess what has to happen? They have to play each other again. This time the game will be at Seaforth if both teams happens to get through Friday, which will then be on Tuesday. So for those of you who basically missed the first 3 games, if you want to see a 4th game, if both teams win on Friday, then guess what? Seaforth versus Northwood at Seaford High School on Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Yeah, and then also about Seaforth is just going into this playoff run fresh off the loss to Northwood, right? That was a frustrating loss for Seaforth if you watched it, because that they just shots weren't falling, just things weren't going Seaforth's way in that game. I mean, how much is that game, with you being around those girls, how much is that game on their mind kind of in this playoff run as far as kind of like motivation?
Well, as I stated before, when you play a team 3 times and you beat them the first 2 times, there's not a lot of motivation for them to play that 3rd game, because they're like, we've been there, we've done that, we beat them. And even though you need to tweak some things, you're not really, they're not really committed and fully understand. You really do have to tweak these things or you're going to lose. Now that Northwood beat Seaforth, believe me, it's on everybody's mind. And everybody understands if you don't come out there and play, just as Northwood did the third time or in that conference tournament championship game, it can happen again. So I can promise you on Tuesday, no one will take anyone for granted. And I'm sure Northwood is going to come with their best and Seaford is going to come with their best. And we're going to find out, again, who's the better team on that specific night. And I believe that's ultimately what happened to Chatham Charter as well when they played Clover Garden in that third game in the conference tournament. It's like, man, we beat them twice. We can do it again. They coming in there, lackadaisical, now had an urgency. In the meantime, you got the other team in practice. They drilling hard. Like, man, we got to get over this hump. And then when they got in there and played, the other team played with more energy, more determination, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately, they overcame them. So now I think that Northwood should win on Friday, and I'm thinking the same thing for Seaford as well. I looked at some film on the team that we have to play, and I think it's a bad matchup for them. But again, that's just me talking as an analyst right now, and I don't want to say all too much. But at the end of the day, if you don't have speed, if you can't get out and run, right? If you can't move, you don't have any athleticism, the play against us is going to be really, really tough. You're going to have to hit like threes galore. You're going to have to deal with our press. We have Gabby White. We have Katie Leonard. It's just a tall task. And Northwood matches up well with the kind of players that we actually have. This team that we play on Friday, you know what? It could get tricky for them if they don't come in there prepared.
Now, Coach, are you just pushing for Northwood to win on Friday so that Seaford has chance number 4 to kind of revenge that loss? Because Asheebo's right, man. I don't know if he knows this from your bench, but your girls were not happy with the way things were turning out, especially Gabby there when she had her 5th foul. She walked to that bench and she didn't look happy. So are you just doing this? And let's say Northwood goes up against Seaforth on next Tuesday. And folks, you need to come out there and watch that game because those two teams, when they play against each other, are definitely entertaining to watch. But if they win that game, if they were to play and Seaforth to beat Northwood, or Northwoods to beat Seaforth in that game, how's that set up either one of those teams for the following game, which would be next Friday? What do you think the logistics are? What do you think winning that game would mean to either team going into the next game on Friday?
It would be a huge win for either team because it would have solidified the better team at the end of the year. And it's bragging rights, to be quite frank with you. And they're going to be on a high and going into the next set of games. They're going to be playing with a certain level of confidence and energy and just swag that is going to be real difficult for some of these other teams to be able to deal with. I think the elephant in the room as far as the girls on the east side is going to be North Pitt. They have 2 or 3 like D1 level type girls talent that it's going to be tricky for anybody to beat them. So I think leading up to that game, either Northwood or Seaford should be able to win all those games. Once you get to North Pitt, assuming they get that far and assuming North Pitt makes it that far, that's going to be the game where, you're going to almost have to play a perfect game. You're going to have to be locked in, focused. Plus, if you remember, North Pitt played Seaford last year in that semifinal game, and Seaford was able to beat them. So this year around, if North Pitt makes it to that same point, semifinal game, they're going to be playing with an edge, an urgency, because they understand how it feels to lose that game getting that far. So that is not going to be a very easy game. But to your question, Gene, I think either team that wins, Seaforth or Northwood, I think it's going to serve them well all the way through, specifically once they get to that Eastern, the semifinal game, assuming it's going to be North Pitt, it's going to set them up perfectly to be successful at that point.
Asheebo?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like if those two teams were to play in that third round game, Seaforth and Northwood, that's gonna be a really highly emotional game. I feel like it's gonna be a lot of effort being put into that game on both ends. And I mean, whoever wins, it's just about forgetting about that. You know, you gotta throw that in the trash and get ready for the next game on Friday, because there's no. I mean, this is for Seaforth. I mean, they're trying to get back into the state championship and finish the job from last year. Northwood, for them, they're trying to do the same thing, get to the state final as well. And that's everyone's goal here. So I think for them, I think for Seaforth, it will be a good win for confidence wise to get that funk off the last Northwood game off of them. But also for Northwood, I think that will be a confidence boost, as in like, hey, we just beat the number, one of the top seeds and on this side, a rival at their place. I think that's a big confidence boost for them going into the next couple rounds. Like, hey, if we can beat Seaforth, like you said, Coach Barry, that beat North Pitt last year. I mean, why can't we beat everyone else here on the east side going into the state final? So, I mean, that will be a very monumental game, determining, I mean, really how we'll see. I mean, what teams will come out of the east side when Seaforth and Northwood play, but if they play, because Seaforth has to take care of North Johnson on Friday at home, and like we said, Northwood is going to East Carteret on Friday, and then Chatham Central is at Beargrass Charter, and East Bladen is going to Chatham Charter for our girls' slate of basketball on Friday.
Well, let me just make one other point, and this is something that I don't know if many people understand what's going on right now. There's something going around where there's a lot of people getting sick. I'm hearing about certain things in Northwood. I definitely know about certain things at Seaforth. And a big part of what's going on right now are all of the teams 100% healthy? I will tell you this. In this last game that we played, we were out both of our 5 players. Sydney Ballard wasn't there. We didn't really have use for Jocelyn Gessner. Gabby White was sick. We had another person, Jenna Thompson, her knee was banged up. We had another girl was out for a week. Mia Moore, she wasn't available. So this first game, we probably played at a 60% capacity. 60%. Even this game coming up on Friday, we're much better now, but we're still, missing. We're still not 100%. And there's some girls getting over like the flu, the cold, out of school. If you're out of school, you can't play. So for all of the Chatham County schools that specifically are still playing in the state tournament, what I'll say to you is this: make sure when you go outside, you put some clothes on. Make sure you're warm. Drink a lot of water. Make sure you take vitamin C. Take your vitamins. I really need you to do everything you can in your power to stay healthy. That's really, really important, because if you're not healthy, now all of a sudden you got a one and done situation. You can't play. Now the team loses because maybe the thing that you could have brought to the table, it wasn't there, and the team falls short. And that's just the truth of the matter. I know in that Northwood game, Jocelyn Gessner, she hurt her finger. I think it was a stress factor. Mia Moore wasn't available because she had the flu. And it was all of these things, going on. I believe there was some other stuff going on. I didn't know at the time that one of the other key players was down. That's not saying that the outcome wouldn't have happened that way. But when you start hearing about other teams, like the Chatham Centrals, like the Northwoods, like the Chatham Charters, they all kind of experiencing the same thing, then it's like, you know what? Let's do something about this. Let's try to really focus in on making sure our health is where it needs to be to give our teams the best possible chance of success.
All right, gentlemen, we're 15 minutes into this. We need to wrap it up. Coach Barry's got something coming up in looks like about 8 minutes. So, Asheebo and Coach. last words, and where are you going to be next week too in the next 7 days?
Oh yeah, Friday I will be at Northwood for the boys game, and yeah, and then should we see Northwood girls and Seaford girls meet? Of course, I will be at Seaford for that one, but we'll be just first seeing how this Friday games will play out. Coach Barry, where will you be this Friday?
I'll definitely be at the Seaford Lady Hawks game on Friday at 7 o'clock, and hopefully I'll be able to also be at the Northwood boys game, depending upon the time situation. So
wait a minute. Does the girls game start at 6 o'clock, Seaforth, or is it 7 o'clock this Friday?
Well, they post all the games to be 7 o'clock if it's one game, but oftentimes, like what the athletic director will do is he'll say, "Hey, what time you really want to start the game? You want to go at 6 o'clock? You want to go at 7 o'clock? You want to go at 7:30?" They can kind of play with that a little bit. But if it's at 7 o'clock, that's where I'm going to be with the Seaford Lady Hawks. So we'll see.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm showing 6 o'clock, so we'll find out. Asheebo will post out on his Asheebo R38 Twitter account, and also wherever else, and we'll find out because I'm looking at it says 6, but that doesn't mean you're not correct. So I was going to say if it's at 6, I'm going to probably try to shoot first half of that game, and then go over the Northwood game. And going back to Seaforth, the Seaforth wins on Tuesday. They're the number 1 seed, so they'll still get to play at home next Friday. If Northwood wins on Tuesday, they're, I think, a way lower seed and would land up traveling again on Friday. So, and the Northwood boys, if they win on Friday, will get to play at home on Tuesday. But there's also the possibility that next Friday they would actually have to travel because because of their seeding, and there's actually some people wondering why Northwood got seeded as low as they were based on, RPI and everything else. So
100%, because they lost to Myers Park. They're the number 1 4A team. They played Reedsville, which is the number 1 team, right? At 2A. So who else they lose to?
Right.
So what
They also,
huh?
I was about to say they also beat Richmond.
Yeah. So it's like
down in,
sometimes, man, you get penalized for the success that you had in prior years. Like, yeah, here we go again. Let's let somebody come up and, or maybe then they're not the ones that's favored. They don't want them to move forward. But again, I still think the Northwood boys, listen, you're going to have to really beat them, because even Myers Park, listen, they fought tooth and nail. They never gave up. They just was a little low in firepower. Myers Park had about 3-4 players that can just hurt you. We just didn't have enough, we didn't have enough to deal with that.
Yeah, I think is it Granville Central that's ranked higher than or seated higher than them, and the Northwood girls played against their girls team, and there were some folks that came over to watch the girls team that stayed around for the boys team because they were wanting to see how the Northwood boys would do, because they would land up probably playing against them next Friday. But hey, we're still that's whole 3 games away, folks. Thank you for watching. We consistently get over 500 of you watching every week. Sometimes we get over 600. Thank you very much. We appreciate it very much. Gentlemen, anything else before we have to say bye?
Nah, great job again, Gene. Great job again, Asheebo. And I can't wait to get at it again next week to talk about the developments.
All right. Thank you, folks. We'll be off.